Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We know it's a beautiful autumn here in New Mexico, but it's also election time. We have an election November 7th, which is a Tuesday. And in that election, we have Albuquerque Public School Board members up for election. 3 of the 7 seats are up for grabs. We have invited all the APS candidates to be guests on Issues and Answers so you can meet them and learn about their priorities for our school children and for our entire community, because we know the education at APS affects all of us. I'm so glad that my guest today, Peggy Muller Aragon, she represents District 2 in Albuquerque, and she is running for re-election. She has chosen to be a guest, to accept our invitation, and we are going to introduce you to Peggy Muller Aragon right after this, so please stay with us.
Hey America, now there's a place where we can join our voice, Real America's Voice. Real America's Voice is coming to a town near you with a grassroots approach, bringing the real voice of America together. Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country, and soon you could be part of that change. Download the Real America's Voice app and join other Americans just like you across the country, coming together for real change.
The election is right around the corner, November 7th. It's a Tuesday, and of course we know there's early election, absentee voting, and all sorts of things going on. So, as we say, no excuse. Actually, I applied online with the Secretary of State's office to get my absentee ballot. So you're able to do that. I think the date is through October 24th, 28th, so check on that. But the election is soon, November 7th. As I mentioned, we invited all the APS candidates who are running in the 3 of the 7 seats are up for grabs, and those who have accepted are our guests. And today we are introducing you once to Peggy Muller Aragon, District 2 APS School Board member since 2015. Welcome back to the program, Peggy.
Thank you, Ms. Kinderwater. I appreciate you inviting me back. I always enjoy talking to you. So,
District 2, where is that located?
That is located on the northwest mesa. So if you know where Cibola High School is in Volcano Vista, it encompasses Taylor Ranch, Paradise Hills, Ventana Ranch, so Montano West.
Some of the newer neighborhoods, but maybe not that new anymore.
Growing neighborhoods.
What high schools are in your district?
Cibola is in my district, and also Volcano Vista. So those are my 2 high schools, and then we have 3 middle schools.
Which are what?
Which are Tony Hillerman, James Monroe, and LBJ.
Okay, that's your district. You're running. This is what, your second election?
This will be my third election. So I was elected in 2015, and then in 2019, and 2023, I hope.
And why do you want to continue, Peggy Muller Aragon? Why do you want to continue for 8 years now?
Why I want to continue, I can tell you something that spoke to me this morning. I received an email from a couple of parents who emailed me to tell me thank you, that I had made such a huge difference in their child's life. Never met the child. This child had started 9th grade when schools were closed in 2020, right? And then her 10th grade year, schools were all remote. And then 11th grade, it was still very difficult time with, distancing and masking and so many different protocols to keep the kids, safe. And so her senior year was the only year that she had that was really a typical year. And her parents said, you were the only one fighting to get the kids back in school. And she remembered that. And she was like, you just made such a huge difference in her life, and we just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate you. So what I do is so that kids know that I'm going to always put them first, so they can be assured that one of us on the board is always going to do that, and always has. And that's why I'm running again. It's just kids first, always has been and always will be.
That was tough times, and you were a school board member during these very, very trying times.
I was. It was a difficult time. We didn't know what was going on. Obviously, everyone wanted to keep the children safe, but having been a teacher for my whole career, I was an elementary teacher, taught kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, mostly kindergarten. I understand that if you are not in person, especially at some of those younger ages, that it is going to be very difficult. I can't imagine trying to teach a child how to read online over the computer. I just don't know how. I can't imagine how difficult that is. And what we have seen is that there was just great harm done to children. And you can see that a lot of them just are not where they should be. Also, social and emotionally, they're just suffering. We are really not meant to be solitary creatures. I mean, kids love to go to school. My kindergartners love to go. Their favorite time of the day, you asked them, was recess. They got to play with their friends.
You're a graduate of West Mesa High School and also the University of New Mexico.
Correct.
I think you have a bachelor's and a master's degree.
Correct, I do. So I have a bachelor's in education, obviously, and then I have a master's in education administration. So I was thinking maybe I would end up becoming an administrator, but I just love the classroom and just being there on a day-to-day basis and just watching the kids learn. So I just didn't want to move to an administrative position. So I just
But board member
stayed.
8 years. You told me beforehand, things are looking up. Tell me a little bit about that, Peggy Aragon.
Things are looking up because we got 4 new, board members. There are 3 of us. 2 of us, myself and another one, had been there since 2015. Another one came in 2017, and the other 4 took office in 2022. So pretty new board. But what I have always wanted is to focus on student outcomes and accountability. So everyone has to be accountable to the children. And I believe that every child can learn no matter where they live, no matter their circumstances, that every child is teachable and that we can improve student outcomes and we can move up from 50th. Like, we can do it because our kids are amazing. They're just these phenomenal children.
So how do you work on accountability?
Well, how we're going to do it is we have 4 goals that we created that are based on student outcomes. So the first one is early literacy. So as everybody hears, if you don't learn to read by the time you're in 3rd grade, it makes it very difficult for that child. We are also our second goal is about math proficiency at the middle school level. We know when kids go from middle school to high school, algebra is the class that they fail so often, and if you fail that, your chances of dropping out go up considerably. And then we are focusing on post-secondary readiness. We have to get the kids ready for after they leave the K-12 system. And then our last goal is just all about life skills. The skills, mindsets, and habits that we all need to have. We need to know we got to be on time, we got to show up, we got to persevere, we have to self-regulate, self-efficacy. So those are all important for all of our children. So those are the 4 goals that we are concentrating on right now.
You're saying as a board?
As a board, those are our.
How long have you had these goals?
We just started with those goals. We started working on them about a year ago. We adopted them probably this past summer, that they were all summer that they were all adopted. And so they're in there now, and now we are monitoring those goals. So the administration has to be accountable because they have to present to us how they're working, how are the kids scoring, what is going on. And so that is how we're holding them accountable. Also, the superintendent, his evaluation is going to be based on those 4 goals.
But how are we going to measure? Of course, let's start with literacy, which is critical, and there's always discussion about social promotion. That means if a student cannot read, should you just socially promote them to 4th grade, which could do a lot more harm if they continue going on and on in the school system without being able to read and not having a teacher catch that. Mm-hmm. So regarding literacy, has always been a priority, learning by 3rd grade. What if they cannot read by the 3rd grade, by the end of the 3rd grade?
If they can't read by the end of the 3rd grade, that is going to be something that we are working on when it comes to interventions. So there are interventions that are going to be put in place to make sure that those children, we are looking at those kids since they are in kindergarten. Our monitoring calendar has us looking at kindergartners. So this next board meeting, we are looking at the scores for kindergarten. It's kindergarten readiness. So then we have a first grade test. Obviously we have a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. So we're looking at first grade. So we're not waiting till the child gets to third grade, because as we know, by the time they get to third grade, it's too late. So we're monitoring them since they're starting in kindergarten. So we can catch anybody who is behind. As a kindergarten teacher, most of us know the kids that are going to struggle. So why not work on those children immediately?
And those who struggle, Peggy Muller Aragon, are they the ones who come from broken families, from poverty, from English as a second language? Who are the children who are struggling in APS?
When you are looking at, like I was looking at the monitoring report for next week, and what I found for, the reading at, kindergarten, first, second grade level, is that what you find is it is a lot of the children who come from maybe lower social economic households. With the free and reduced lunch children, that you see that a lot. You see a lot of the Native children that are struggling. You see a lot of our African American children. A lot of our EL students are, as you would say, our Yazzie Martinez students. Those who are the ones that you really do see struggling the most, no matter
so
really
is it
what
mostly
grade they're in.
poverty related?
Well, that's what I've asked that question, and I have been told that often it is, more times than not, it is poverty related. That's what I've been told by the experts. I find that kind of shocking, knowing where I grew up. I grew up in that supposed zip code or whatever, and so I have a really hard time. And then having taught in...
Meaning what? What was the hard time that
it's
not
really
necessary?
believe that I just have a hard time really believing that that's what it is. I put a lot of it, to be honest with you, is on adults. I don't think it comes from a bad place at all, from teachers. It's just that you are saying, I've got to try to help them however I can. And so then we kind of go down to that level instead of lifting them up. And I always think that that's what we have to do. And the children, when we went out and talked to the children, and guess what they wanted? They thought everything was too easy, and they wanted more rigorous instruction. And so you're kind of going, they wanted it. And so what they also found is that only in 30% of the classrooms in APS were the teachers teaching grade level materials. So how can a child be at grade level if those materials aren't even being taught?
How did you find this out, Peggy?
We hired, when they were, the administration was creating their strategic plan, they hired a firm that kind of went out and said, what's going on in APS? They needed to find out what was going on so they could create a plan.
They're finding 30% of the elementary?
30% of classrooms across the district
were teaching at grade level?
Were teaching materials at grade level.
They certainly weren't teaching above grade level, so they're teaching below grade level.
70% of them were obviously teaching below grade level.
Wasn't that kind of shocking? I mean, that's kind of shocking.
We were shocked. I think all of us were really shocked. And not so much, I believe some of the new board members have children in school. And so they knew this didn't seem right to them. So it was wonderful to have them come in, because my children obviously are all grown up and I don't have grandchildren. And so it's just from talking to people that have children that we know what's going on. But if a child, how could they be at grade level if they're not presented with those materials and with instruction?
And why do you think they weren't being taught at grade level? Because the teachers wanted to make sure they tested out of their proficiencies that they're teaching, or the teachers didn't think the kids were prepared for the previous grade? What was the reason? That's a question to ask a lot of teachers, is what do you think it is? And part of it, honestly, I think, is now teachers at the elementary level anyway, are going through this letters training, kind of teaching, if we can look back at what we learn, how we learn to read. It really isn't rocket science, right? It's like you teach phonics, you teach phonemic awareness, you teach vocabulary, you teach comprehension. And a lot of the teachers, were not taught how to do that.
at the colleges of education. It was.
So that's something to talk to the University of New Mexico about.
We would love to have that conversation. And so now APS is putting the money for professional development toward that training to make sure every teacher knows how to teach reading. So it's called now the science of reading.
I'm not in education, but I guess I thought that's what they learned to do in college, was learn how to teach, especially the reading.
No, I can tell you when I was teaching, I believe I was teaching third grade, and I taught phonics, right? I mean, that's just what I taught. I taught phonemic awareness. It's just what I taught because that's how I grew up. But it was interesting, we went through this whole new thing. Back then it was called whole language, that kids were just magically going to just get it by presenting them with the language and not by this letter makes this sound. Right?
So when APS School Board found this out, that 30% of the teachers were teaching at grade level, what did the board do?
And so what we have done now is we have these things called guardrails that the superintendent cannot let go of. These are like non-negotiables, right? So no matter what, for the next 5 years, our goals are going to be around for 5 years, no matter who comes, no matter who the superintendent is. We have the strategic plan for 5 years, and we have these things called guardrails. And in the guardrails, children are going to have to be taught with grade level instructional materials. They're going to have to be. So
I guess it was a given. I just thought that was a given.
Isn't that a shame that you wouldn't know that you would just make that assumption, which I think is fascinating, because I know when I was teaching kindergarten, we had books, and they were leveled books according to different levels. Children that, they only knew letters, so then it would be really much
I just thought
simpler.
that we're teaching at grade level.
Well, I guess we probably thought that we were until the company went in there and saw that wasn't exactly true.
Tell me that fourth goal regarding being on time. What did you call that?
It is the habits, mindsets, and for life skills. So it's
The life skills.
Right.
When did the board decide we have to teach our society life skills?
Well, what we did is last fall, we went out to the community and we asked the community what they thought their children should be learning. And so that's how we figured out, well, they want their kids to learn how to read. Imagine, that's not shocking. They think they need to do math. They think they have to be ready after they get out of school. And the other one was, hey, they have to know to show up on time. They have to know to believe in themselves. They have to have grit. They have to be able to regulate their own life. And so this all came from the community meetings that we had across the city. So
business leaders, business people want to make sure their employees show up on time. It was something kind of another given. We expected people would know this, but we need to be teaching that.
And that starts at a young age. It really does. You can't start teaching that when the kids are, 18 and getting ready to graduate.
They also talk about financial literacy, which is important. We all have checkbooks, and we all some of us may need to get a mortgage to understand those skills, but that's the financial literacy, but still part of the life skills that we all need to know.
Hey, I remember when I was in high school, that was the best class I ever took. It was called business math. Learn how to balance a checkbook, and learn how to create a budget, and learned all these percent. You got to spend this much on your mortgage. You got to spend, this percentage. I thought it was the best class I ever had.
Very practical.
No offense to Algebra 1, but hey.
I agree. More real life activities.
Correct. Yeah.
What's the goal? What's the responsibility? Of course, the board. We have the teachers. We have parents. Who's ultimately responsible for these kids' education?
Well, I will tell you, in my opinion, and I think as we have seen, many legal opinions come out, that parents have those rights to determine their child's, education. They have that right, really guaranteed under the 14th Amendment, under the Due Process Clause. They have a right to determine that, a right to determine how they raise their child and how their children are socialized. So I think a lot of that is there. And I can tell you why I was shocked is when parents will come to me and they will say, my child isn't working out with his teacher. And so can I move this child? Can I move my child to another class? Well, who knows their child better than any parent? Who loves their child more than anybody, as the parents do? I will never, ever, ever question that, ever. And so I said, can this child, and I did speak to the superintendent and said, this child needs to get moved. It's just not working out in this classroom. And I was told, point blank, there is no such thing as teacher shopping. So we can shop for whatever kind of tennis shoes our kids want, and we shop for their dentist, and we shop for, their their pediatrician. We shop for all of, but we can't let the parents determine who the teacher should be. And I think we should be allowed. They should be allowed. Parents should totally be allowed.
As a school board member, what are you able to do to allow this?
I mean, honestly, that is up to a conversation to have probably with the new superintendent, is how can we really change this? But I can tell you a big part of it is going to be what the union decides, and the union doesn't believe that merit should be playing into that teachers are all, basically they're all the same. Which even kids will tell you that they've had great teachers. They can tell you who their great teachers are, and they can tell you which ones just didn't do a good job with them. And those teachers, in my opinion, shouldn't be teaching our children, and it should be easier to get rid of a teacher than it is, because that would be better for the children.
And the role of the unions. We talked about the parents, their responsibility. We have a very strong union overseeing the students, overseeing the board, overseeing the superintendent.
Yes, they have a lot of control. They truly do. They negotiate for every teacher, and that is a shame to me. Nothing is ever based on merit, and I think that just demoralizes some people. I just remember that as a teacher, as I was never, part of the union. I believe that's what you want to do. You obviously have a right in this state to be able to do that, but it just demoralized a lot of really great teachers that were getting paid the same amount, even though they went above and beyond other teachers. They were always with the clubs.
So as a school board member, what are you able to do? Just voice your opinion on this, or is there some authority that you have?
Well, honestly, we are not at the negotiating table. So when they go in to negotiate, it's the union and the administration. So what we can do as a board is tell the superintendent, this is what we want. But then when, he or she would go in there, it's up to them to make sure to pass that on.
The main responsibility of a school board, we have 7 positions, 3 are up for election, is to select a superintendent, which this new board will be doing, but also regarding the purse strings, working on the budget, or is that up to the administration? What responsibilities does a school board member have?
I mean, we give recommendations. Obviously, we hire the superintendent. We give recommendations about the budget. We get updated, and we're trying to get updated like monthly on the budget. And what we have decided as a board is that we want the budgeting to look differently. And so we want the budget to be a student, which is something I wanted since I got on the board. It's called student-based budgeting. So that is budgeting based on the students' needs. Every school will look different. So there may be a school that focuses, on the arts. There will be schools that focus on, CTE, on trades. They need that kind of infrastructure. So there may be schools that need more gifted programs. There may be schools that need more dual language courses, so it will be based on what's needed at every school.
Might we have this Peggy Muller article?
Oh my goodness, I hope so. We are looking at it, and if it does if our finance department keeps going along this path, we should have the student-based budgeting in place by the fiscal year 26, so that's not too far away. So we just approved the fiscal year 24 one this summer, and so that would be fabulous. That would make me very happy, because it should be only based on what the kids need at the schools, and the schools know what they need. The administrators know what they need there.
But a big role of this new board being elected November 7th is selecting a new superintendent. What would you look, if you're reelected, what would you look into as a candidate for a school board, school superintendent?
For the most important thing is that we have a person who is going to totally believe in the promise of every single child, that every child can learn, that they have had successes improving academic outcomes. I think that's very important. I think that we have
Proof. You want to see proof. Because everybody can voice,
Oh,
yes,
they
the
can say
child
that.
was first. Everybody can say that.
No.
But you, as a school board member, if you were to choose a superintendent,
You better show us. You better show me that you have improved student outcomes in whatever district you're coming from, that you respect the teaching profession. We just have to, we just have to lift them up a lot more than what they have been. And I think we have to respect the New Mexican culture. I mean, we all have got along here in New Mexico for generations and generations, and I think we need to really respect our culture. I want somebody who
you want
really
someone to bring in new
understands
ideas, because we are, in a lot of ways, 50th. The children aren't at grade level in math and science and reading. You want someone with new ideas. What do you want?
I would like somebody with new ideas. I truly would. I would like, if I could, I would look at every high school and make it a place where anybody, no matter where they live, wants to go. And that they're provided the transportation, because that's an impediment for some people, that they don't have a bus to go even to a charter school, right? They can't get to some of the charter schools they may want to attend. So I want to make every school a focus, and there are states that do this. They say this high school is going to focus on the medical profession. This high school is going to focus on this
But don't
trade.
we have the charter schools to be doing that usually?
Not always, no, not always.
So you're
I just
thinking-
think that traditional schools should be that, and they should be open to anybody, because what happens is there will be, and some of the schools in my district, they're very large, it's a big district, right? And so they say, oh, any child can go anywhere that they want to go, but they can only go if there is room for them.
Oh,
And that's not true. That's not giving true choice, in my opinion. Fire teachers that are horrible teachers. Make every school, every high school for sure, a school of excellence focusing on something. I think we need to do that. And then when it comes to, especially at the middle school and high school level, is courses, the length of a course should be based on that course. Some things just take longer than 50 minutes to teach, but yet everybody has 50 minutes to do science, to do math, to do a language. And there are things that you need more time to do them, and I think it should be based on that. Not every class is going to be 50 minutes. I think that's important.
Peggy Muller, Aragon, thanks for you dedicating 8 years as a school board member, and prior to that as an elementary school teacher here in New Mexico. Thanks so much for being a part of this program, accepting our invitation, as we invited all the school board members who are running the APS election this November 7th. So do your part and get out there and vote. And again, you can do early voting, absentee voting. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The New Mexico Modern Child Support Family Program works to benefit both parents for the purpose of improving children's lives. It provides the basics of child support, but goes further by helping parents step up to find better job opportunities that get them back on track to paying their monthly child support obligation. Find out how the Child Support Step Up program can help your modern family. Contact New Mexico Child Support today to learn more.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.